Hello, everyone. We are back with some more Clair Obscur finally. Well, it hasn't been that long, but now that I've been trying to get back to a lot more YouTube content, seeing how I do with that, excited to finally do some more of this. And today we're going to be finally looking at Lumière, and this has been recommended a lot. I mean, I only have two recommenders listed right now because I haven't gone back to the last month of comments, but I'm sure that a lot of other people have suggested it. And yeah, I really appreciate guiding me to some great tracks from this game. Still basically avoiding spoilers because I'm excited to play it, but obviously I want to save a lot of it to do on this channel first, totally blind. So we'll see. I'm continuing to hopefully look at a good chunk of the soundtrack before I do play the game. So I don't know the context around the term lumière in the game. Obviously, it means light, but I've seen it come up in a number of the tracks from the game. There's many that include this term, so I'm wondering if it's perhaps like, without thinking about it too much to spoil things, but maybe it's like a name for a group of people in it. Maybe like the heroic group is, the Warriors of Light kind of thing. A little bit of a old school Dragon Quest shout out. Or Final Fantasy, that sort of thing. Or maybe just some other concept in the game. But what I did also want to look at a little bit is a little bit of background. I didn't find too much just looking quickly, again, trying to not find too many spoilers, but couldn't find a lot of comments on exactly this track. But I wanted to at least talk a little bit about Lorient Testard, just as an introduction to some of these pieces. And as I move through the soundtrack, I hope to dig a little deeper and deeper into the context and the composer and composition leading into them, just to add a little bit of something extra. For now, what I want to mention just is from this interview, it's cool, Testard and I are very, very similar. Not that I could ever write music like him, but I find it funny how many parallels there are. Like, I also... he's almost exactly my age, and we started teaching ourselves music at almost the same age too, kind of late. He's 30 right now, I'm 32. He started teaching himself music pretty late at 16. I did as well, around 16 to 18, just started going straight into classical piano, repertoire study, and history and composition just by myself. Similarly, did it alone for a few years, went to did musical school for a few years, and then continued from there. And yeah, grew up with Mario Party and Mario Kart as a little kid. I did the exact same thing on the SNES and 64. So it's just funny, like I feel very connected to Lorien after reading this interview. Like, yeah, we just have a complete parallel in timing. I mean, I could only dream of being as talented and musically capable. But timeline wise, at least, I feel like I know this person much more because I had those same steps. This isn't somebody who was deep into music schools from 5 years old or something. This was somebody who had a self-motivation close to, adulthood, and, forged their own path for a bit, went and got a formal basis in education, lifelong passion for video games is all the same for me. So I find that really, really cool. And I'm actually even more excited to explore the rest of the soundtrack, thanks to learning a little bit more about the personal background of the composer and finding it super relatable. Just recording this after the video because I think it was important that I actually mention who's performing in this. And I'll try my best with the French pronunciation. I enjoy working on it. So I didn't realize the composer, Lorient Testard, is actually also on guitar here and singing the duet. I totally didn't realize what he looked like. Then, of course, the wonderful singer Alice Dupont-Percier, and then the musicians from the Orchestre Curieux. Anyways, yeah, we're doing Lumière. I'm excited by the fact that it's another one of these official music videos, because the last one I did was beautiful, and I did hear the first 1 second of this piece already. I've spoiled that for myself, so I won't have as much of a reaction to exactly what it starts with. I know it starts with pizzicato cello, but just to check that the soundtrack version and the official video were the same track, and they are, which is great. I love the fact that like the quality of a sort of like live session is also the same version used in the game. Not that this is like an spontaneous live session. Of course, this is a very well produced studio version of the track, and it is the official track. I like seeing those things being the same, because sometimes you have, you know, games where you see the version of the game which is great, and then you see a version that feels like one of these like kind of live studio lovely recordings, and you get to see the performers and everyone, and it sounds even better, and you're like, I wish that was the one in the game. Maybe if they like remaster it someday, it'll be that. So it just kind of warms my heart seeing that this is also what's already in the game. Although I believe they also have an orchestral live session or something that I almost certainly will look at eventually. And that might be one that is different from the game tracks, I'm assuming. So might have that experience there anyways, but at least in general for the game, I love that for the most part, these music videos are really like the primary source of what's happening on the soundtrack. Yeah. So I'm thrilled to get to do this. I'm excited. And as I said, I know it starts with pizzicato cello to create sort of the harmonic setup to start. So let's go. Let's go. Interesting. Oh, the guitar. All right, I'm stopping at 30 seconds, as is tradition for me. Immediately, I want to say that I experienced this almost completely. What defines this first section for me so far, and maybe the rest of the piece, is just a play between the staccato and legato. We started with pizzicato cello, which is just plucked strings. We get a guitar coming in later as well. We have a lot of, you know, percussive staccato usage, and it's so emphasized that we see it in the voice. It starts with these sort of just voiced syllables and not getting into the lyrics yet, just to do, you know, a staccato vocal line, and it goes in and out of that. When we bring in the violins backing, which of course are very smooth and legato and connected, we also start getting suddenly the longer vocal notes that are held and connected. So those suddenly parallel, but then it shifts back and forth repeatedly. So it's constantly changing the texture, playing with staccato versus legato, which is a great, you know, dynamic to go between. It's sort of one of those secondary dynamic areas you can work with to create a sense of transition or call and response or variety. You know, it's beyond the typical, you know, first level of dynamic, you know, techniques in the toolbox, such as volume and speed, you know, going to articulation as a dynamic tool to create this variety. And again, to create a back and forth. And I'm going to listen to the first 30 seconds again and actually kind of note where this happens. I'm sure there's a million other things that I'm not noticing, and it's fine. You know, not everybody's going to comment on everything, but I do notice just the beauty of the recording of the instruments. They sound stunning. This vocalist, of course, I've gotten the chance to hear already, and she is incredible. And even more, you know, variety in the delivery here with the writing of this piece. So many other things I could comment on, but I think what feels most important to me is this sense of like, what's the aim? What's the real point of this composition here? Like, what is the germ of the idea in Lorien Testard's head making this section? And possibly like, how does that idea, if I played the game, I probably would know how that idea might even relate to the game itself. I'll also note that in the interview that I was reading here, it also mentions a little bit that the soundtrack, maybe it can sound a bit French at times, but that was never a goal. It was just to create an original soundtrack without that kind of inspiration necessarily. But just because of his French background and history, you know, experiencing music, it might come out in that, but it's not an intention. And I kind of agree. I think from what I've heard so far, it's all stunning and plenty of classical and jazz influence and all sorts of things. But I also would say I don't think it's particularly French. I would say, funnily enough, the Professor Layton pieces I've done so far are ones where I've been shouting out like, oh, this is so French. This is so French. I've never said that for Clair Obscur. So yeah, oddly enough, that's also my experience. So I see Testard's point there. Anyways, I'll stop rambling on and actually do what I said I was going to do about going back through the first 30 seconds. So we get, of course, staccato with the plucking, and even the violins are just playing a quick note and releasing. And of course, the vocal line is disconnected. And then all of a sudden, this first phrase comes in, the vocal line becomes connected, the violins play longer legato sections, and it's a complete contrast from the first 10-second intro. So immediately your ear is catching, the feel has totally shifted, despite, of course, the harmonic context and everything is the same, and the instrumentation is the same, but they're all being articulated differently. And after that point, I would say, now we're back to where I stopped before. I would say, interestingly, we start with everything staccato on all instruments. We shift to everything legato for a section. And then I would say, since then, the second half of this introduction, not a formal introduction, but, my introduction, my first 30 seconds. The second half of this, I would say, is actually a blend. It's not as structured as a back and forth with all the instruments like it was in those first 2 bits. Rather, it is bits and pieces of that shift here and there. The vocal line has staccato deliveries mixed in with the longer held notes, and we get the guitar coming in, which is naturally a more plucked or strummed instrument that is more percussive by nature, and the other instruments kind of go back and forth as well, the violin and cellos. So yeah, I think it's sort of like we get one, the other, we get the synthesis, kind of a Hegelian thesis and antithesis situation here. That's kind of a ridiculous connection to try to make, but I don't know, maybe there's something philosophical going on here. You get a blend of the two approaches finally, which I think is a very cool way to structure things. I think if you're talking about like working thematically or dynamically in a piece, you present one kind of approach first, another contrasting one, and then you find a way to blend them. It comes up in all kinds of ways. Like you might write one melody, a contrasting second theme, and then you actually find a way to interweave them instead of just going into like a developmental section without like true melodic content. I think that's also an excellent way to structure something. It's like if you write a book where like it follows one character for a long time, then it follows another, and then you get a section where they're actually both involved and it shifts to third person. Obviously, that just like it creates a great narrative for the brain to latch onto artistically. Anyways, just doing my thing, overanalyzing a little bit. We all love that. That's why we're all here, right? Anyways, time to continue this beautiful piece of music. Very interested if it's going to shift a lot from here, or if this play articulation-wise is going to be a focus for the whole piece. Still is. So playful. Although the harmonic progression is dramatic. Wow. Get the duet. I heard them say Clair Obscur. Yeah, that's the name of the thing. I know that reference. It's all of a sudden we get this beautiful duet. I wasn't expecting the guitarist to add a vocal, but it sounds incredible, and it really comes in with a big parallel layering of pretty much all the instrumentation here, sort of note by note, and it just gives this really full, rich texture suddenly, which is just sounds beautiful. And I'm just honestly the whole time I was pretty just distracted by how incredible the primary vocalist is. She's just wonderful. Like, could listen to that voice all day, every day. And I guess I'm going to get to listen to a lot more of it on the soundtrack. But yeah, I mean, the texture shift to the duet, it's always a wonderful shift, and it's working great here. But yeah, just everything comes in layered suddenly and creates this huge texture. not huge, like oppressive, but compared to especially in the earlier section with a lot of staccato articulation, the shift to such a full texture. I mean, a couple instruments playing staccato is about as light a texture as you can possibly get, because there's a lot of empty space and gaps. So it lets you enjoy the contrast of building up to this really full texture even more. So I'm just loving it. And again, it's very playful, but we are getting this, few chord progression that is very classical and leads into, fairly dramatic cadence. And, it's a fairly heavy harmonic sound in terms of drama. But the staccato aspects, the vocal delivery, the playfulness, even you can visibly see the playfulness of the singer, just the way she's moving her body and her expression is very light. So there is a lot of contrast of light and dark here, which, coincidentally, we're talking about Lumière. So playing with light and dark is another aspect I would say is, or terms you could define a lot of these contrasts with. And I think that connects well to the title and the theme of the piece. You can even see it in the studio. I mean, here we've got, it's all very dark and black, and we've got these streaming lights coming in. It's well lit in some ways, but it's got a lot of shadow. And that's going to be the same for, all of these studio music videos. So it's not unique to this one, but I think it's fun to find there's like 3 or 4 angles in which you could analyze this as light versus dark. Even the staccato versus legato articulation, you could even talk about that as being light versus dark. Again, I'm saying harmonic mood versus the other energy and mood being lighter, the articulation, the actual visuals of the studio. There's a lot of angles for that. It's just food for thought. It's not necessarily correct, but it is the impression I'm getting. But yeah, let's continue. Sounds incredible. Clair obscur, double de nature, trouvera effet. Clair obscur, dans des hauts pas, tu trouveras sans elle. Oh, clair. We're back, but we get the piano this time. Steinway. Bleu, rature, clair obscur, guardé aux peintures. Okay, I have to stop. I just love that line so much. Again, we get a little bit more disconnected, more empty space with the vocal. When we reset here, we do a bit of what we've done in the beginning, but this time we have the piano again playing a little bit detached or a very light texture. And as usual, the recorded piano sounds incredible. The Steinway they're using is lovely. I don't like playing Steinways so much. I'm prefer a Bösendorfer or like a Kawai or Youngchang Yamaha. I've never really played a Fazioli, a couple times in like a store, but I usually don't actually like the feel of a Steinway that much. They're a little heavy for me, at least by default, but they do sound great, and this one sounds incredible. Just a little aside, but I have to hear this line again. Oh, I missed it. Bleu, rature, clair obscur. That just sounds so good. That Clair Obscur. Clair obscur, guardé aux peintures. It's beautiful. I don't know, she just continues to impress me. Clair obscur, guardé aux peintures, trouvera sans elle. Clair obscur, double de nature, trouvera effet. We get this full texture, but now we have the piano, and it's doing a little bit of a, little filigree notes up in the higher register, and I really think the mixing's pretty impressive on this. That I was going to comment right before that I'm surprised how audible the guitar stays a lot of the time in this texture. You can, pretty well make out the guitar strumming, and I always think that's a bit of a challenge mixing wise with this many instruments. But then also after that, you can hear the piano too. It's just like there's so many elements to the texture. Really makes me glad I've got great headphones to listen to this with and a decent amp. Yeah, beautiful little details added by the piano, so it's an even fuller texture than before because we're plus one instrument. And I really like how the singer moves. I love that they look at each other when they're duetting a lot of the time. Just have that kind of, eye contact connection. Makes the performance even better. Yeah, but back to this full texture, then we'll keep going.
Clair obscur, voir des hauts pins, tu trouveras sans elle. Clair obscur, trouble de gras, tu trouveras effet. Clair obscur, voir des hauts pins, tu
I love the piano
trouveras
line.
sans elle.
Drop back down, stunning cello. What playing? Violoncello duet. Violin solo. No, still a duet. God, I love that section. I wish I had a whole piece of that. Not that the vocals aren't beautiful and a very intrinsic part of this piece, but oh man, I not as much as piano, but I'm a pretty deep cello fan as well. There's some recordings and musicians who I'm just in love with and can't get enough of, and this is just such beautifully written and performed instrumental work here. Like just even this one cello line and playing, I'm gonna try to catch and show you which one I liked the most. Right there, it comes up from deep, it sounds beautiful. It's stunning. I actually saw a solo cello recital recently, several months ago. I believe by a cellist named Queyras, Jean-Guyen Queyras. I do not remember how to pronounce his name, but saw a solo cello recital with like a sonata by Zoltan Kodály and Bach cello suites. So some really progressive modern stuff, some Baroque stuff. He was incredible. It was really just, I was totally entranced. So speaking of French cello, I have been in love with it already, if we're calling this French cello, which, again, not an intention to write French music from Testard, just as Queyras was not performing any French music, but it is from French composers / musicians. And, that's the through line rather than the style of music being played. But it's just such, I could listen to this section all day. In fact, I have to listen to it again. It's just so good, this whole part. I just want to bask in it.
Obscur, voir des hauts pins, tu trouveras sans elle.
It's like the perfect style of melody writing to me. Incredible. Back to these just gentle vocal phrases. Lovely humming. Oh, we get a choir. Oh my God. Yes. Man, those male voices were amazing. All of it was, but man, the male vocals really were soaring there in the choir. Beautiful little guitar plucking carrying this end section. Violin takes over what the vocal line was to close it out. We get the guitar kind of taking forefront, and then the violin kind of takes over what the vocal was doing before. But man, I I bet everybody, when I was talking about, oh, they've added the piano now to the full texture. Wow, they're plus one instrument. Everybody's like, you don't know what's coming. You don't know there's a whole choir that's about to join this. Talk about a way to elevate that full texture to something even bigger. It sounded amazing. And you know what I really particularly appreciate here? Not that this is a universal lesson or preference that has to go for every track in every case, but I do want to say that a lot of times tracks in games do a dynamic journey by starting lighter and getting to a thicker texture to give you that interest of that build, to try to have a sort of climactic arc and to increase the intensity. But usually it's done more with percussive layers. Like at worst, it's done with a huge overuse of timpani and kind of, very epic trailer music type sounds, which can still be a great piece of music, but it is a little bit of a detractor to me just because I think you can do more with less. But even times where it's not necessarily going that direction, a lot of times it is still the addition of percussion, of drums and such that raise the intensity. In this case, there's none of any of that. I mean, we've talked about how the articulation is very percussive in a lot of ways, but that's definitely a different sense of percussion than this intensity raising. In fact, in this case, using a percussive staccato approach is actually, again, lighter. That's the lighter side of the texture rather than heavier. So total opposite of the effect of the, addition of percussion I'm talking about to add intensity throughout the piece. In this case, we reach the highest intensity by, adding just more instrumental layers. We add a choir that's doubling what's going on. And I guess choir can sometimes also be a stereotypical way to make music sound more epic, but that's not usually something that's added later in a piece. There's not a lot of examples I can think of where a piece that sounds, kind of epic in a game track doesn't start with choir, but uses it as a dynamic layer added later. I guess, funnily enough, the Ludwig, the Holy Blade, and the Accursed pair, you could say does that, but it is in two phases of basically two different pieces that adds that choir in the second half. But I think that's a little bit different than in the same track, having it introduced later, but it's close. And that is also one of the greatest, game pieces ever written. So that's a good example if you're going to have any company that's good company to be with. But yeah, I just wanted to appreciate, like, it added intensity and texture without any percussion, just by adding more layers of instruments and adding a choir to create that build. And not that that's something unheard of, but it's an approach. It's more something I'm commenting on as an approach that I prefer. And I'm really glad to see here. Not that I guess I wouldn't have expected percussion to come in anyways, because I don't see it in the studio. But then again, I didn't see the choir, so could have come out of anywhere, could have come out of nowhere. Yeah, God, this was fantastic. This makes me really excited. I already was, but it makes me even more excited to see more Clair Obscur. So the question is, where am I putting this on my playlist? Of course I'm keeping it. Of course I'm going to listen to this more. It has, again, a unique vibe. It's so light versus dark. It's got drama, but it's very playful. So again, that makes it a little bit hard to place. It's, not completely tranquil. Calm yet stimulating is perhaps becoming a little bit too much of a catch-all. I put this piece, Histoire, in here from FF16, which was one of my favorite things I've ever listened to on this channel. Unbelievable. If you have any curiosity about that, I definitely recommend checking out that video I just did on it. But, very unusual mix of feelings there, even more so than this. But ultimately, I put it here. But I don't know, I'm starting to feel like this is too general. I'm going to apply it to too many different pieces. It's non-dramatic classical. I could stretch the definition of forest to have this feeling, but I think I'm going to keep this to things that at least tangentially have like a thematic relationship to the forest, rather than trying to figure out, would I compose a piece like this to possibly represent a forest? I did start putting some of these under orchestral songs in a sort of Mahler-esque way, but I don't know if it has enough of an orchestral feel. It's got a chamber music feel. but not a like symphonic song kind of feel. But it's possible that I should just rename this to be, I don't know, classical songs, orchestrated songs. Maybe I need to reduce this definition to steer it away from just symphonic songs, which is a pretty specific genre that does exist. But also, I accidentally left some of these bolded. I'm just correcting them as I see them. We're always just kind of hanging out while I do this on the fly at the end of the videos. Yeah, let's take a peek. It's not one of the jazz pieces. It's definitely not a cappella. It's not super contemporary. But am I confused enough about it to figure it out later, like these pieces? But these are like multi-movement, pieces with vastly different sections in them. I may need to. I think I'm between calm and stimulating or orchestral songs. I think anything with like that kind of staccato little nature, these disconnected moments, something about that is naturally stimulating. I just find it like, prickles the brain a little bit. Isn't that even a word? I don't think that's a word. For now, I'm putting it here. We're doing orchestral songs, and I'm gonna rename this. You might hear an alarm going off in the background, but that's fine. Also, I do want to get the proper letters for this. So let me copy the track title from OBS, put it here, unbold it. I'm going to have to pick a color for Clair Obscur because it deserves to have a highlight color here, just like some of these others, so I can easily track it. Let's actually do that now. What do I think fits and contrasts with the others? What should it get? Does anything have yellow? I don't think so. Fire Emblem has orange. And yellow kind of works for light. So I like that. I think that's fitting. And I'm already at 4 of them, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm okay with this. I might rename this for now. Orchestral / chamber ? I'll figure something out better for that later, or feel free to give me suggestions. I'd love if people were shouting out what they think about some of this categorization. That would be awesome. Yeah. I appreciate you coming and watching. I hope you enjoyed the reaction. I had a great time with this. A lot of fun connections to make, a little bit of background. Just a wonderful piece of music overall. And thrilled to do more of this. Keep the suggestions coming. I haven't processed comments I've gotten for the past month. I'm going to do that this upcoming week. So I don't have suggestions logged from everything since then, but I will. I do read and take note of suggestions from every single comment. I have a local database where I keep track of it. So what I'm doing right now is coming from hundreds of previous suggestions, and someday if I get a lot bigger, this will be through like a Patreon type of thing for requests, but we're a long way off from that. For now, I'm just really happy that people are willing to point me in the direction of some stuff they think I'll like or that they want to see. That's cool enough for me, but I do have to pick through a lot of suggestions, but I do keep track of every single one, so keep them coming. I will be logging them all soon and responding to comments. Yeah, I will see you next time in the next video. Have a great day / night / whatever part of the day you're existing, anywhere in the world. Till next time.